The Therapist and the Coach podcast is a space for real relational conversations about what it means to be human.
In a world obsessed with fixing, achieving, and self help, we invite you to pause, lean in, and discover the wisdom already inside.
Together, we explore how healing, growth, and transformation can happen not in isolation, but in connection.
Through open hearted dialogue, we challenge the myth of self regulation and self improvement, offering instead co regulation, psychological safety, and the power of being seen. There we go. We come out of a kind of a long break where I was in Asia for a long time and where we haven't recorded for quite a while.
Yes, it's good to be back with you. You were around the world and back again, and time zones. I know we
The
tried to fit
time
it all.
zones and we're heading into the holidays.
Yeah,
So,
so nice
yes,
to see your happy face.
the same here.
Yeah, so you pulled a topic out of the bag to for us to look at today.
Well, I was thinking, talking about, because I was doing something on my own about listening. What is listening? You know,
Mm.
and I thought about us and what we are presenting to coaches, to therapists, to whoever be in the capacity of helping, and how much connection it has to do with listening. Because we're talking about the connection is, trust, connection is everything. And when we talk about that, I think that listening, I mean, people, yeah, I listen to you, but what does it mean that you listen? Because listen really foster or going to the other side in terms of connection, in terms of, being there for people and fostering trust and all the rest needs to come, first of all, from actually listening. And over the years, I was training people to actually listen, but it was in a different way than kind of like, okay, kind of listen with your ears. It's kind of more like have a space to listen to somebody. Lerae, one of my over the years as a therapist, I started talking less. At times it's not that I'm not talking throughout sessions and things like that, but I'm listening more, and I found out that that by itself is so healing because a lot of people just have the answers themselves, and but they're so scared inside, and they just so doubting themselves, and maybe was never trusted for who they are and what they can be. And so they're looking for answers outside, and so many times the answers are inside. We're just not listening to them, so they don't trusting themselves, and we tell them what to do and how to do. And that might be something that they think, oh, that's great, but they kind of lost themselves in the process, which that's actually what we want. We want to collaborate with people. If I had to tell people how to be constantly, it goes for me, so what do you do? And I said, like, well, I can tell you my way, but I'm more curious about your way.
Mhm.
And then when it starts actually the listening, and if I actually really with all hearted, not judgmental inside and listening, which a whole process by itself, not judgmental and all that, because we all come with predisposition of our experiences in life and what's good and what's not good. We'll embed that later. But um, then things start flowing, then energy start flowing, and that by itself is so powerful that I
Mhm.
thought that's something that we want to attend today.
Mm.
What is your experience with when we think about topic of listening?
Well, it's interesting because you and I come from my background is in counseling, and my first skill base and experience around the idea of listening and learning how much I didn't listen, or more I was waiting for my chance to speak
Yes.
or to level up or to add something brilliant or to um I've got so many things in my mind as you're talking, but what I can say is I 100% agree, and my experience was similar. Um, and I think about the process of learning to listen. Well, actually, let me go back. What's really interesting, because I'm always thinking about the therapist and the coach when we get together, and my assumption is that we were going to come in here today and we are going to talk about what listening is like from a therapy perspective and what listening is like from a coaching perspective, how it's different. And we could have this interesting conversation and create more distinction between the two roles. And yet, every time I think we're going to do that, we end up talking about how similar the roles are.
100%.
And really, what strikes me and always comes to the surface is that it starts with witnessing. It
Exactly.
starts with presence. So, one of the core competencies in the coach education, which was so useful coming out of counseling, learning the basic skills and understanding that there was levels of listening. There's surface based listening, there's, more other based listening, and then there's the really, what's not being said. And what do what listening to self in
Right.
response to listening, and yet just holding space.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really, it is a skill, it is an art. And I really appreciate you bringing this up because it seems like every single one of our topics we could probably have 10 conversations on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that the what really to build on and affirm what you've just offered is presence, the witnessing of another, which also goes back to the things that we've referenced and talked about with regards to co-regulation, self-help being a
Hmm.
myth, and how important it is to sit with one another, and the psychological term being co-regulation creates that environment, to use your words, for energy to flow. And when energy to flow and there's trust and there's safety, psychological safety, and the nervous system can calm down,
Yeah.
it's amazing the brilliance, because I think inherently we are solution finders. We are incredible adapters. And when we were little, the past, therapy perspective, and we experienced trauma and or just things that were humiliating or embarrassing that we didn't understand and we didn't know how to cope with, and we didn't have any co-regulation or anyone there to help us understand or process,
Right.
we as little people decided, whoa, that was painful, I'm never gonna let that happen again, and we got busy not letting that happen anymore. But that's the mistrust piece.
Right. Right. I appreciate it.
So going back to listening, I think to be listened to is one thing, but to be heard, truly heard, and seen, like seen is the reflective part. And the
Yes.
reflection can simply be energetic. Doesn't, like to you said, you stop saying
100%.
so much. You don't have to
100%.
say so much.
No, there is so much power in just really be attentive and actually listening. Actually listening doesn't mean that we need to. And I think I want to take something that you said is so important, that when we were young, if we didn't have, our caregivers tried to do the best they could, but if they couldn't really listen, couldn't, weren't capable because they were busy in surviving themselves, then they couldn't really listen to us because they were the parents and we were the kids and they had all the power in the world. And if we really actually listen, the signs are there all the time, but they might be very different than the verbal message. They might be incongruent with the message. Then we sometimes lose what's really the message underneath that. Sometimes it's very out there and we just ignore. You can see a kid that just like have a face. All of a sudden, kids don't really cannot really say much, so they say like, "Ugh," or "I don't want to," or you if you really actually listen to what they say, they might not say it verbally, or they might say it verbally and we ignore them. Then they
Mhm.
stop trusting themselves, and then they stop having all the energy of them. You start going down and split off from the psychic because they do not exist. And if they do not exist and think that nobody actually listening to them in a respectful way, and for me, in a respectful way is not necessarily like sitting there and say, aha, but actually to listen to the person. When I talk to somebody, I really try to see how they react to my message. Now, I can come with a lot of conviction that I think is, I want them to hear me. But at some point, I'm constantly looking at them to see what their reaction. Did it get through? Are they happy about that? Are they having
Yeah.
that or this
Yeah.
or they
Or,
just they
or
said
leaning
it.
in.
I ask so many times, does it make sense? And say yes, it makes sense. And I see like well, it didn't doesn't make sense. I mean, I can see that it's not the message that I get underneath the nonverbal message is very different than what they say. But I'm tuned to the vibration underneath to really see what it is. Because if you're really actually listening with our heart, we can know the question, we can know at least that something was incongruent there in the communication and we lost the other person. And
Mm,
so then I comment usually, I say like, it sounds like, I mean, you say yes, but it seems like that. And then it opens up for them to actually say what they really want. Because I might come as an expert and they want to listen to me or blah blah blah, but it doesn't fall well inside for no matter what reason.
mhm,
So the communication of listening is constantly, now this is with my clients and I need to listen to them rather than, hopefully as much as they can they listen to me, but it needs to be constantly flowing, and that is created by safety and actually listen to what's underneath that.
mm,
So that actually requires capacity,
mm.
and you said something so important. I'm so, so many times it happens to so many people that you just want to be part of it. You don't want to be invisible. You want to add. You might be even hired to do something as a coach or
There's some kind of need driving a
yeah,
behavior.
yeah. I need to add
Isn't
some
listening.
yeah, yeah. I need to add some value, right? I cannot really sit here and not doing anything, right? You know, and then so we need to kind of immediately go inside. What should I say about to add and at that point we stop actually listening and try to, and it's all noise. And you're right, and that comes from lack of trust that we had in the past, that we're just worth sometimes the listening and just being there. I
Mm,
think people underestimate how much value, because as you said, we're so left brain is so kind to do
mm.
because we weren't actually in a place of being, and being is being listened to. And not necessarily with the ear, it's just like being there, present. And if
Yeah.
our parents weren't, then we are doing what was done to us.
And in all fairness to all parents out there, we're not going to be in every place because sometimes the parent is at work and didn't see the thing that happened behind their or making dinner or like it is the human experience.
A
And
hundred
yes,
percent.
there are different there's a continuum of that from traumatic abuse to whoops, I was looking the other way and I
There's
wasn't
life,
aware or I
right?
had
There's
something going on,
life.
so it is life. What strikes me as so impactful in thinking about the healing power of relationships, which is really the overarching theme here between the therapist and the coach, is is the it is absolutely magical to me to watch the impact of somebody what I refer to as healing forward. And again, that's me distinguishing in my own mind between what I did as a counselor and what I do as a coach, because the past does come up. Because often when I'm actually listening and people have an opportunity to say what's on the surface of their mind or like at the top of their mind, and then they have space to actually go deeper to just by asking, well, what else is there? Or, what, like bringing curiosity with presence to someone. So yes, there's so much power in the listening, but then inviting more either through silence by not filling the silence like you're saying, like just sitting back and listening to the nonverbals and really paying attention to the whole person. There's so much that is from the past that can be healed in an instant, resolved, completed, done, because it's been witnessed, because it's been heard. And it's really fascinating to me too, because whether I'm coaching a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or a single mom or an entrepreneur who's really high functioning, or it doesn't matter who it is, the moment someone is seen at that level of the original hurt, or they actually get in touch with that and then are witnessed, heard, and even just presenced, they will cry.
Absolutely.
And then there's the vulnerability hangover that's instant of like, oh, I'm crying. And I'm like, yes, you are. And my mom, bless her, she's not with us anymore, but one of her gifts to me was to say that when tears are the soul's way of saying it's felt heard and seen in a way that
Yeah,
was really important.
100%.
And I love that because I can give that message to other people and I really believe it's true. And it's interesting how many barriers that they might face or how many challenges or problems that they're either projecting or generating or creating themselves or experiencing that get resolved because that one thing was able to come forward because there
Yes.
was space. There was space, and the other person was present to them, listening to them, and seeing. You brought up nonverbals, seeing and paying attention to what was being said and not said, but
Yeah.
expressed energetically, physically, emotionally, tone wise. There's so much to listen to. There's so much to listen to.
There's so much to listen to, and less doing, because then we when we actually listen, and as you said, the person becomes vulnerable. Because if we listen to the wrong thing, and so many times people would feed us with the surface level because they're protected, they're not feeling safe enough
Mm.
for from the past all the way to might be the present, as where we are in the company, in the wherever it is, whether it's the kid that tried to do what the parents want them to do because he's not listening or she's not listening, or employees that are the CEO or that can say like I'm listening but they're not listening, and the employees knows that we know when we're not
You
listening.
can feel it. You
Oh
feel it.
yeah, oh
You,
100%
it's
we
an
feel it.
energetic vibe
You
thing that
know, yeah, you
has
know.
more impact. Like so that the person might be doing listening behaviors,
It's,
like nodding and leaning
that's
in,
exactly right. That's exactly
but
right.
you're not being heard.
You're feeling that in all your being,
Yeah.
and at that point, what you're doing is you put your protections on. It's automatic, it's unconscious. You participate in that kind of like level of surface, and that to do, and as if we're talking about. That's the thing is so many times. I think it also in our professions, I'm saying both coaches, therapists, we're doing the right thing, but
Mm,
actually, and that's even worse than, when there is abuse and neglect. Abuse you can see. So you can say,
mm,
oh my God, he's hitting his kids, it's bad.
mm,
But when
mm,
they give credit cards, it's like, oh my God, they got everything, they're rich, they're that. So it's hard to see that. I mean, so many times in our professions, the professionals are doing the right thing, but they're not available themselves inside.
mm,
They're surviving. And it happens to all of us, I think, at some point. That's where mindfulness of us needs to kick in and say, am I available to listen right now? And when I don't listen, to sometimes say, like, I'm sorry, I wasn't there with you. And there is something so wonderful and vulnerable from us to say, as you said, like we're busy, we might have our implicit coming, our all of the time, we have tons of things to do. It's constantly happening to all of us inside. But the
mm.
moment we are not in that place, and I'm not blaming us or anybody, I'm just saying just to be mindful of you're not, and then communicate it to the other side, because that creates the true connection. We don't have to resolve anything. Even if we're supposed to listen and we can't and we lost, I so many times catch myself, I'm listening, and then my mind going to another way. I mean, how many times that happens?
Mm.
Constantly. Even
That's
throughout the
actually why I left the counseling field because my mind, I couldn't stay present because I just couldn't. I didn't know
right.
coaching didn't exist as a thing at that time, but I just couldn't. Like I almost couldn't be available to hear the pain that other people were coming in that therapy
Kudos
realm.
for you that you realize that.
Well,
You know.
I don't. Yeah, I
But
cried for.
but how many times people are not, but how many times, Lerae, people are actually want to help others, but they are not aware of their limitation, and their limitation is continued because they're helping others, so they're not with themselves, yet not helping others when they don't have themselves to be available at that point of time.
Yeah. So you
So
can't give to others what you
you
are not giving
cannot, you
to yourself.
cannot, and that's the tragedy of so many, from companies, families to people, families with kids, that we try to do the best we can, but yet we're not available to be actually present in the moment. And that's where life and old wounds are coming to the surface, that we, as providers, as healers, as coaches, as therapists, try to help others. Yeah, we are surviving.
Mm,
And I have all empathy to us as much as I want to have empathy to the ones we help. But also, in essence, how can you become somebody that is available to others? And that's not a left brain property. Left brain property is constantly surviving and not listening. It's to do. Well, actually, the answer is the Holy Grail is right on the right side, where if we could just be open, could just be open, and I'm saying open the field of listening, because if we listen, then we are with that person. That's what create that connection. That from there, the alignment of vibration, paving the way to anything else that needs to happen.
Okay. What you just rolled out there so beautifully and so effortlessly from your experience, from your knowledge, from your own knowing and sense of w- the depth and the potential for healing and generative growth and all of that, in any environment. Like basically you're saying in
Any
any, if we
environment.
just do
Wow.
this. So herein lies, you've also presenced the fact that um, you've also presence the fact that we have to be available, and therein lies the challenge. And it's one of the things that is happening, and it might not be happening everywhere, but it's happening in the places that I have, in spaces I've been playing, as the coaching field continues to expand, especially from COVID. It just like it blew up. And there used to be, in the earlier days of coaching, the mid to early or late 90s, there was an emphasis on development of self. So this very addressing this very thing that you're saying, which I encapsulated in, you can't give to others that which you don't have yourself. If you're not available for listening. So a couple things are happening. There's a focus. So coaches are coming. This is what I'm witnessing, and this is actually how I came into coaching. I came into coaching. So I'm going to speak from my own experience as opposed to
Yes.
generalizing, because I believe
Please.
it might not be other people's truth. I came in having a very accomplished way of getting the gold star, figuring what people wanted or needed from me, and then giving it and adding value, getting the I and then I get the love. Like that's where I got the love, the appreciation, the safety I needed to know I had value.
Right.
Coaching, and this is where I don't know if therapy is the same, but coaches come to coach education with that. Okay, I came to coach education with that mindset, that heart set, that way of being and that way of thinking. And my greatest difficulty, the rock and the hard place of becoming a coach for me, was do nothing. Just listen. That is the gift. Your presence is the gift. That whole, your gift, the gift is the presence. So
Yes.
so that number one. Number two, listening. But my emphasis was on the powerful questioning, which is another competency in coaching. I was always thinking about, well, what's the powerful question that's going to blow their mind and open them up? And it was all about me, in essence, my need to prove my worth. So then we go back to the wounds.
Yes.
So if I do not see myself as worthy, if I do not see myself as enough, if I am not doing my own work or come in with any level of self-awareness, I am going to be doing a disservice because I can't sit in that space and be enough.
Can I hug you right now? Can I hug you right now?
Well, this is well,
Because I get chills from what you're saying right now. It's just wonderful.
this is
Thank
20 years ago, and I vacillate in and out of it depending on my capacity. Like right now, I have very little capacity, and it shows up in my listening. Every meeting I attend, I'm like, oh my gosh, I keep interrupting. What am I doing? Just let people speak. So it comes and it goes, but it's different. Like that original space where I recognized that I actually didn't know how to listen, and I didn't know how to stay still and hold space for another. And I had to learn to trust that that was enough and that I was enough and that was the gift. And the magic that happened out of that is that the questions that I had to ask became far fewer. So, like you, I stopped talking so much, and they were inspired questions. They weren't coined, they weren't effort. I didn't have to effort. They were just there in my psyche through this connection that you've been talking.
yes.
quick story. My first client, so I had a few clients, and then I landed this CEO client of an oil and gas company, and I met him at the gym, and he paid me large amounts of money, more than I could have ever imagined, for three 30-minute sessions a month. And he came in, and I was inserting. So here I had all these skill, he'd hired me, and he fired me after the third session. And then he said, I'm going to do you a favor because you've shared a little bit about the journey you're on. And he said, the woman that I met in the gym is not the woman that showed up when I started paying you.
What a great story.
I felt like I had to prove my value. I was
Yeah.
inserting and
Well, you get
interrupting.
so much money and all that, and you need to
And
prove your worth.
he said, I hired you because we would be in the middle of the gym and you would listen to me like nobody has ever listened to me before. It's like no one else was in the room. There's these banging and
Oh, this is
clinking and
wonderful.
grunts and everything. And he said, and that's why I hired you. And then we started working together and I paid you all this money and all of a sudden you were a different person.
Lerae, this is just an incredible story, and thank you so much for sharing that. This is invaluable.
It was huge learning. It
Oh
set
yeah,
me back on my heels. And I said, well, can I try again? And he said, not at this time. I mean, we did
yeah,
circle back and do some work later
yeah,
on,
yeah.
but he was really honest. And that was probably one of the greatest gifts that turned me on my head and turned me around. And really, I really understood what you're saying. Like what you've been sharing. I
This
really
story
understood for the
is
first
just. Thank you so much for sharing that. My goodness, this is an amazing story. And you know, I'd like to actually. We're right now live recording. People are going to see that.
time.
And I just kind of came to my mind how is our interaction right here, right now, is so
Mm.
beautiful and respectful, and we're listening to each other. We really are calmly with each other. And look what happens out of we didn't come with any script, with anything that we're just sitting and conversing. And as we go, you and I, in this intimate space in a way that we're actually going to broadcast, but we have intimacy, trust between us with our really capacity to just sit there and be with each other just the way it is and see what happens. It's flowing, it's going deeper. You can be vulnerable. It invites me to be more vulnerable. What this is the power of relationship without any agenda to fix or not fix.
Well, and or to perform,
Or
because
to
yes, we have the
perform.
intention to share this, and we both agreed that people who resonate with what we're offering will listen, but we're putting it out without attachment, with intention to talk about this and support people to grow in their capacity to be with one another and engage in the healing power of relationship,
Yes.
whether it's from but understanding that it doesn't matter what perspective you come from. Humans are
No, it doesn't. It's human. It's a human being thing. It's
yeah.
and it's the
And
fundamental for anything.
yep. And I've got one more really important point, given that you brought up that, the space that we're in together. This is probably about our 10th conversation ever.
Isn't it incredible?
And
It's
it
it's
is
very true. It's
incredible.
our 10 and look at that. We don't have to perform for each other. We are actually talking about our vulnerabilities. The connection is like I feel right now is incredible.
Mm.
And we started talking about listening, but look what happened when listening. We just go so much to places that we're heard, and it's so valuable rather than try to teach people, open your eyes and make this and smile and all this surface thing when we're actually not there. This is
Mm.
actually listening. And
Mm.
you said something so important that if it's okay, I'd like to say something about that. You and I, after hearing your story right now, will learn to not, we were not listened to. So we had to perform for our well-being, in any possible way. Physically, I had to be looked always like, even though I felt horrible inside that I was not attended as human being. So all the skills and the performances became who I was. And that's what I geared to help others. When I started doing therapy 25 years ago, well, probably more, I would be constantly in the performance mode to and very excited by the way about it, but with intense of listening and that, but all the time I'm surviving underneath that. I
Mhm.
just want to perform, to be the right person, to do the right thing for my clients. Where looking back, I did what I could at that point of time. And you did what you could. You wouldn't even talk about it today if it was at the time right now. You would be probably ashamed of it. We were ashamed as people. So,
Well, no, because I had a coach to process it with. So I didn't sit in the shame very long before I processed and understood. Like that's again one of the, but please continue.
right. But we have a lot of pockets of shame inside, whether we're aware of them or not. That as we clear them up and being vulnerable and see that actually not we just didn't survive, but we just actually left and it's okay. We have faults, we have injuries, we're human, we sometimes attentive, sometimes we can't be attentive with all the right things. We're human just to become human. That opens up the field for others to be and thus get all their skills in such a different way. It opens up so when there is a container, the right brain container of being listened, then you see the child start running and start exploring and start having fun. It's the same thing with employees. Their creativity grows.
The
They feel,
barriers
yeah,
come
yeah,
down.
yeah. They're not surviving anymore. And that's just a difference between surviving and thriving. And
Mm-hmm.
many times we're just surviving constantly because it's not safe. Whether because it wasn't safe in the past and we bring it to the present. And so many times we are in environments that reminds us the past. So we're doing what we know to do to survive. And then we get others to survive too within the name of helping them. We're just basically perpetuating the situation. But I had a meeting with I was brought by one of my CEO that I was working with.
Okay.
Um, and I actually was working with him in a personal level, but we formed a relationship over time. Large company, large, very big company. And he actually wanted to invite me one time to the meeting. I was like on the big board there with all these like big large table with all the CEOs that, and I'm coming with a t-shirt as usually. I'm dressed up, but usually I'm very casual, and that's just dress up for me. By the way, it's not going to be a tie. I just don't like it. And then I'm there on the screen and they're all looking at me and I'm just all saying, I just want to listen. I just want to hear you because I don't know. I heard from him what's going on, but it was like 10 people. I want to listen to what's happening. And Lerae, most of the time I'm in the big screen and they're listening and I am just listening and I'm just asking questions. There was nothing done other than from me understanding them. And you could see the room at the beginning was very quiet because of the culture and the whole thing. By the end of the hour, it was alive. We didn't solve anything, but the feedback was, we want way more of that. And then we established relationship of being listening to each other. And I'm the expert. What do I know? I can be expert in helping you if I am actually having myself. That's all I am the expert in.
Mm-hmm.
And gradually we foster a relationship, created a different culture of being in such a kind way. Everybody felt safe. That led to so many other things just automatically to come
Mm-hmm.
because it enabled people to be. And when they were there, they didn't try to gear to what they're supposed to do or what the CEO expecting them to do, but they had the clearance, the safety to allow the fact that you're a CEO doesn't mean that you know better than your subordinate. And then open up the door for others to be there where you need to hold as a CEO, as a parent, but allowing them to thrive. You just kind of need to hold all of that with your kindness as a glue. It's so much easier and so much more is coming. And we're opening a vista into the quantum field rather than being in a narrow path that everybody needs to walk and nobody's actually there because nobody listened to them and nobody wants to actually listen to them or can.
Mm-hmm. Whew, the
Oh,
quantum field. Yet
yes,
another topic that you just dropped into the space. Well,
yeah.
the I really appreciate you sharing that story because our stories, I think, do amplify what we're talking about. And stories meet certain people or learning styles in a different way than, maybe an auditory or visual someone receives that kind of information. But That is such a profound story, and what it actually brought forward in me, if I'm listening to what's coming up in me in response to your story, is something about belonging. And where my brain got also activated in that space of safety. And I'm reminded of a phrase that I use in the coaching land, and that is that coaching skills, and maybe therapy skills, are humanness skills. They
100%.
are the skills of being human, because we used to circle so much more, because we used to be reliant and be so much more resourceful, and relationship was survival and belonging was survival. Like, those are the threads of my brain as you were talking, that those are the things that got activated and inspired by your story, which
Good
are
girl, it's
all
all
great
right, it's all
topics
good.
we can talk about, because that primal need to belong also drives a lot of behavior that
100%.
interrupts listening. So we've talked about psychological safety, and I'm curious about psychological safety and belonging and how they're different. Are they different? Like that, I'm like, can we talk for another hour?
Probably what we will do next week, because there's also
Yeah.
the interperson, the neurobiology of listening and what happens, why we can't listen so many times. I think we can go a
Oh,
little bit deeper than that,
okay.
even to explain the audience the mechanism behind that.
I'd love that.
And I think that today we just really was so important, first of all, and to your words, and amen to that. It's the human thing. It's the human
Mm,
thing, and that's
mm.
it's all over the place. It's not any different whether you're doing doctor a physical thing. Yeah, sometimes you're going to doctor to get something, for physical thing. But if you're not getting heard, you don't want to go back to that doctor. That's not healing. It's in any kind of relationship.
Well, and your relationship is one or more people. So
Oh
your
yes.
story amplifies the fact that you can be on stage with an expectation that you're the expert telling people something, and you can sit there. And something will happen if your intent is to listen and to hold space for people to come forward.
Yes, and so many times we don't trust that. We don't
That
trust that things
trust.
will act. Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
very hard to trust when we were not listening to ourselves, that it's actually possible.
Well,
It
and from a coaching perspective, I just want to slide this in because we do have to wrap, but from a coaching perspective, trust is the requirement for everything. Trusting self, trusting, and it is, the reason for it might not be available in the coaching space, because that we call the therapy space, like looking at for the reason you for mistrust. And yet the healing and the presence and the capacity to learn to trust oneself is the journey of a coaching profession. Like it,
and that is not only a coaching thing, it's a therapy thing, it's a parenting thing, it's a relationship,
it's a
intimate
human
relationship.
thing.
It's a human
We
thing.
come in fully trusting and open. We are
I
conditioned and learn to and find solutions to keep ourselves safe in spaces that we don't understand. And then, because our psyche would. I mean, we can get into that because you've got all that brilliance inside you that I'm looking
We
for to
will
hear.
go through this, and this is really like so important today, which has paved the way that it is a human thing.
Yeah.
It is, it's everywhere.
Which is maybe why we keep coming back to there's no distinctions. Well, there is, but there isn't, and there. So
Human thing. That's a thing.
yeah,
It's a human thing, and that's, I think that as people would as we go, people understand it's all permeates to any kind of relationship.
yeah. This is a joy, and it excites me to ground in the fact that we are just getting to know each other. And my curiosity is piqued based on some things that you dropped into the field between us today. But I can't wait to continue this particular dialogue. And if you wouldn't mind just jotting down the levels of listening you wanted to go a level deeper. So just name that level for us, and then we can pick up there next time we connect.
I will. I will. I think that next time we will actually probably go a little bit deeper. Why so many times we want to be present and listen, because that's our intention might be. And what are the obstacles that we might
Okay.
face from the past and the present? So maybe we'll
And
just
the
invite,
future.
of course, which is always the affect the future right away. If
Yeah.
it's about the past, it's going to be about the future because we're going to stuck in the past and not be able to be present.
And not access
So
them.
I think this is something that we're going to go through maybe a couple of times because it has to do also with being present in the here and now. All the mindfulness things
Mm.
are techniques to help, but if we have things that will linger from the past to the present, they're constantly going to interrupt. So we're going to talk both about that and also about the obstacles that gets us to be effortlessly in the present.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Okay, I'm gonna
Thank you,
stop.
Lerae, and I thank you so much for being who you are. And you see, when I listen to you, just one thing to that. When I listen to you, and you talked about your first experiences that you couldn't, it just wanted me to move forward towards you rather than judge you and say, "Oh my God, you're a good." It's like this is being a good, a good whatever it is. I'm trying to put something good or bad, but this is really means that
It's just
somebody is
being.
there because you're
It's
in touch with
sharing.
that. What they say, I was never really like that. So thank you for that. And I hopefully that will be a model for others to how to communicate. Communicate. It's about actually listening.
Yeah.
And
Thank
as
you. On
and
that
because
note,
and because we all experience being you,
yes.
it just gets people to feel like, oh my God, yeah, I can relate to her.
Yeah, it's that level of vulnerability that we also shy away from, and yet it's so connecting. So
I
that will
know.
be another topic as well.
And
But
that will
for
be another
now,
topic. And that's actually connect to the topic next week. This is the
okay.
obstacles. This
Oh,
is the
I'm
obstacle.
excited.
Yes.
Okay.